So I believe we are all familiar in getting into pathways. By the time you, if you're only doing one path at a time, by the time you finish one path, it probably would be 6 months or more. So you may or may not forget how to select a second path. I'll start off by saying that you receive one path as a new member. The price is already built in for that one path, and every part after that you are responsible for paying for it, $20. So you start off by going to base camp. Well, you would have chosen a path, right? And this is where you would pay for a new path if you need it. As VPE, I have two options here. To go to base camp would be my individual path, and as base camp manager to see the members of the club, president, the secretary, and myself would, all of us would have this base camp manager. Is there any questions that you at all would like to see within pathways before I switch over to the tracker that I wanted to show you all? Anything in pathways that you would like to see or not understanding at this point?
Yeah, I have a question actually.
Yes.
So, yeah, for the pathways, I know that I am on the strategic communication, and but the challenge is having to navigate through because I know that I'm supposed to prior to giving a speech or something, I'm supposed to there's certain tutorials that are available based on the speech to be given, or so to say. But quite a number of times, I'm not quite successful with having to navigate and going through the tutorials and all of that. That's one. Secondly, I did go into my what's it called today? I did go into my portal today, and I realized that I have really not my portal has really not been updated, so to say, because yeah, for lack of better word, it's really not updated. It's really not updated. Let me just put it as that. So I don't know who I'm supposed to get across to, or am I the one not doing something appropriately? Because I know that
So as VPE, I can see your path. I cannot push it forward or release anything, right? So I'm opening on the side of my side for your name as VPE. You
mhm,
can see where you are and what you have done in relation here. I remembered working with you with this level one,
yes.
and yes, you have done another speech since, and you have not completed this part of it. Evaluation and feedback. When you did this speech, in Toastmasters set it up that you should have done the video for this prior to giving your speech. But if you have done the speech already, you still need to go through the video
Okay.
here, and you have to watch, yeah, it wouldn't open like that on this one.
Mm,
So you have to go through all the way to the end.
okay. Okay.
Let me show you what it would look like on my side of it, like if it was my path, so that I can actually push it through. Um, So if this is me and I'm going in for Sweet Talkers, I go to base camp, which is what you as a member would see. I
Okay.
will open up my path, and it tells me that I'm done with level one and two, and I'm in the middle of three. You see here, it's a minimum requirement of two speeches I should do from this section still.
Mhm.
I have a total of 13 to choose from. I've completed one, and I have the second one to complete, and then I'll be done with level three. So I did activate, I did this connect with storytelling already, and then I activated, no, I finished effective body language. And I think I was going to do. So we're just going to launch one for me to show you what it should look like.
Oh, okay.
Right, so when I launch one and you're going to go through your lessons, per se, prior to giving your speech, it tells you what your project is supposed to be and what you should be doing and shouldn't be, what is your objective, what you should be practicing. As you get down into pathways, you will have options of having to do different reports, evaluations, creating a blog, different things, but your project is what tells you what you need to do for that particular speech.
All right.
So,
Get you.
here is where you would go through your sections. When you get familiar with it, by the time you finish level 3, you don't want to go through it from here where you begin and then you have to click one by one, right? Because you have an assessment in the beginning that you should be doing of what is your confidence pertaining to the level you are on. And then at the end, you have to do that same assessment again based on learning what is expected of you through this project.
I get you.
So you do have to go through each one of them and then, oh, come on, you don't need to. At the end, you have a complete your assignment, you have your evaluation and your assessment. When you finish the last assessment, you have to make sure complete everything has been gone through. And when you finish the assessment here, it will bring you congratulations, you're done. Copy there mine, I'm only using this as a tutorial, it's not mine, so don't approve. Right, so you must go through each one of these steps.
Okay, I get you.
It is set up, it was created in a way for you to review before you do your speech. But because it's not all that user-friendly or self-explanatory in the beginning, a lot of people tend to do their speech because someone told you just do a speech and then give a feedback and then you do it again. But as you get familiar with the path and you get familiar with all the instructions, that's really how it's supposed to be done. So if you do your presentation first and you still have to go back and do this in order to push it through to show that it was done.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you very much, Camille. I was able to have a better understanding of that.
Anything else on pathways? I mean, on the website itself, because I'm going to turn it over to the spreadsheet. Now, I'm not taking credit for this. I found this online from a different district, probably about 2 years ago, when we now started up with pathways and we was trying to learn it. And it has worked for me really, really well since. It gives you everything broken down. So you put your name here and you select your topic. It selects and it gives you all the parts that they have. I think if they add a new one, then it's not here. But once you're filling in your speeches, because this is presentation mastery, anything that is mandatory, it will be filled in. The electives, you have the choice to do a drop down and choose your elective. Right? You have, and it tells you, and why I highlighted I just did this as a sample, right? If you belong to 2 clubs, but you're doing 1 path, you need to let the VPE know on both clubs that you're doing 1 path against 2 clubs. So in this case, if this was my home club, Southwest Project Management, this is what this is, but then I gave these speeches at Street Talkers. So let's say this is my tracker for my projects, right? This is where I would have been tracking everything. Then coming down to level, this is level 3, 1, 2, 3. I did some of these. I did 1 for Street Talkers, but I'm missing this. Right, this, and everything with electives, you have a drop down. Once you start keeping track of what you are doing, it would help you know what you need to do next, where you should go with it. You would see that you have to do a table topics master here. Once you do the tutorial before you do table topics master, you realize it's not just any table topics master. Somebody just come on and I'm the table topics master. You have certain guidelines to follow. Same thing with Toastmasters. Being the Toastmaster for the evening, because we get familiar with doing things that we see when we first join Toastmasters. It's not necessarily wrong because every club is an entity of itself, but it's not necessarily what it was supposed to be when Toastmasters created it. So there are little techniques that may need to brush up. Let's say I learned something at one club 4 years ago, and I thought that's what it was, and I like it. And I never go to any other club within that 4 years, and then I decide to join one now, and I do what I learned back then, only to find out it really wasn't supposed to be like that, right? It helps you to understand what exactly is expected and how to perform the roles effectively, that you learn from it and not just because this is how everybody does it. Then if you decide, most people as a Toastmaster, eventually when you start to feel more confident and everything, you want to be a distinguished Toastmaster. You'll hear everybody say about DTM, DTM, DTM. That's a distinguished Toastmaster, meaning that you've gone through all the parts and you have given district leadership, you have given service to the district. You may not necessarily be one paid, exciting public speaker out there because it comes with practice, but you would have fulfilled the requirements to be distinguished. There are some things that you need to do in order to be distinguished outside of just giving speeches and doing functionary roles at the meetings. On this tracker, we have that section called DTM non-path requirements. So these are some of it where being a club officer, being a club sponsor, mentor, coach, a district officer. So I filled it in here to show what it would be like, where you track where you reach in your goals, right? And then once you have your second path, because you need to do 2 paths and club officer role and district service in order to be DTM. So when you finish one path and you start the second one, it would feel like you're just starting over because you have to do an icebreaker again, and you have to do an evaluation and feedback, and you have to do everything that you're doing with the first part for the first 2 levels. The third level changes slightly in projects, between paths, right? And what I found was easier for me is that I started 2 parts at the same time, but 2 different clubs. Because an icebreaker could be a variation of topics about me. I could talk about my icebreaker about my home life, and I can talk about my work life. I can talk about my children, or I can talk about my grandchildren. But an icebreaker is anything about yourself, right? So you can just, and then as you grow, for your first part, if you wait until you complete your first part to do your second part, your icebreaker could even be about doing your first part, how you felt in the beginning to how you are right now. Then you would have this tracker would give you where you are in becoming a DTM. Because I was filling in all the sections, it starts telling me all what is completed. It says congratulations, and what is not completed. So based on what I've done for part 1 and part 2, if this is just a trial, this is just a test that I put together, it says I'm 47%, which on average, the bigger the club, the longer it'll take to reach there if you're only in one club. Depends on your goals, if you want to be DTM or if you just want to be comfortable speaking to other people on the computer and later on in person. It all depends on your goal and how fast you want to get there. We have some aspiring DTMs that could push for this. It helps greatly in getting your speeches in and not just speaking here, there, and everywhere because there's an opening. It keeps you focused on what you need to do. Toastmasters open up all the levels now. In the beginning, in the first 6 months of Pathways, you had to do it in order. Now you don't. You just need to let your VPE, and in my case, I have to let the president know if I am jumping a speech because I had the opportunity to give it, right? Let's say if this was mine and I'm not done with level 3, but I'm able to lead in a team. I join the district TLI team and I'm able to lead in it. And we finish some sort of project we do, and I can give my presentation in leading your team before I finish level 3. So having this tracker and setting your goals and seeing what is required would help you to fill in the blanks as you go along. And the last thing that I would show, because the time is up, is we have, as the Vice President of Education for the club, I have a tracker on my side where I monitor.
I'm looking for Ken.
I would monitor everyone based on our roster, right? I have the roster here. I would put what part that you all are doing. I gave myself some acronyms here: in progress, they registered, not started, registered, or not registered. I check off based on running 3 totals to see once it's on the agenda. When an award is given or that you complete a level, I will put the date in here. I didn't want to bring up the actual one that I had because it had people's information on it. I have the roster here. This is basically it. I have the mentors in order to put mentors against everything. But this is how I will track it. So when I get an email saying that a member needs approval for a level, I will check here and 3 totals. Once everything I am aware of ahead of time, and I see it on the agendas, in the history of the agendas, I don't need any further support. But if you do a speech or a function outside of the club, it is good practice to let me know ahead of time. If you do know that, an email to myself and the president will be greatly appreciated. And it is doable. You can do speeches at other clubs. There are a lot of struggling clubs right now. If we have extra speeches and you want to get it done, you just need to send me an email if you know ahead of time or even after. Any questions?